I guess I'm not mad that I read it, I'm just really disappointed. It's the end of 2023 and I've read exactly 23 non-fiction books this year. I could not have planned this more perfectly. So let's do some quick math, some statistics, as you'd expect from the engineer that I am. Today is December 19th, so we're 50.29 weeks into the year, which means on average I've read 0.46 books per week this year, which is a downward trend compared to the 0.54 books I've read last year per week. Assuming an average page count of 300 pages per book, this gives me an average of 20 pages per day this year. Last year I had 23 pages per day. It's okay, Anna, it's okay. It's the quality that counts, which was also bad, as you'll see. So I'm gonna be ranking all 23 non-fiction books I've read this year from 1 star to 5 stars, starting with 1 star. And 1 star is very sad. A waste of time, a waste of money, a waste of paper, just very sad. And the one and only book I put into this category this year is Working Hard, Hardly Working, How to Achieve More, Stress Less and Feel Fulfilled by Grace Beverley. Now the one thing I do really like about it is it looks super pretty. The green, the gold, it's just... But otherwise, I honestly didn't like this book at all, which is even more tragic because I really like Grace, the author. She has a great podcast on YouTube with the same name as the book, and I've also been following her YouTube channel since years ago. The main problems I have with this book are the bad writing style and the lack of original content. It's written so unnecessarily complicated that it reads like a university essay. And not an engineering essay, that's for sure. And the whole book centers around the author instead of the reader. It's like she just wanted to find a place to write about all the impressive things that she's done, which I'll admit, they're very impressive, but I don't care unless there's a lesson somewhere in there for me. I don't take any value from you just listing your achievements, sorry. The book also lacks a connecting theme. It's just a collection of productivity tips that the author has learned over the years, which if you've ever read literally any other productivity book, then there's nothing new for you in this book. Bye. Let's move on to the 2-star books. And 2 stars means I guess I'm not mad that I read it, I'm just really disappointed. And the first book in this category is The Business of Engineering, A New Mindset for the Engineer of the Future by Matthew K. Lowes. I was expecting a lot from this book and was left so disappointed. The concept sounds great. You combine the powers of engineering and business, but the execution, you can just tell that the author doesn't have that much experience and hasn't read that many books. It's full of cliche stories that I've heard a million times over, and it doesn't actually talk about many engineering specific, it just talks about general business and career advice. The only thing I took from this book, and the only reason I gave it 2 stars instead of 1, is that it motivates me to write a better book for engineers myself. And another 2-star book, When to Jump, If the Job You Have Isn't the Life You Want by Mike Lewis. It's written by the second cousin of Sheryl Sandberg, I guess, which is why she wrote the foreword to this book. And it's about stories from people who've made the jump from one profession to another, how they decided to go for it and how they made it happen. Some of the stories were inspirational, but the writing style was a bit boring to read, so I almost didn't finish this one. Can't really recommend. The final 2-star book is Build, An Unorthodox Guide to Making Things Worth Making by Tony Fadell. I've heard great things about this book from others, but I have to say I'm not that enthusiastic about it. Now there is a chance that it has something to do with the translation. I read a Dutch version of the book to practice my Dutch, and the author just sounds so arrogant. Maybe that's better in the English version. The other thing I didn't like is that this book wants so many things at once. I was expecting it to be about making products worth making, but most of the book is actually a career guide about working on yourself, working on your career, then finally working on a product, and then working on your business, working on your team, and becoming a CEO. The title just doesn't fit the book. And it seems like the author is convinced that the path that he took is the best path ever, and everyone should do it like that. He talks very negatively about a lot of other paths. I'm not impressed. books. Next we have the 3-star books. 3 stars is a solid book, no complaints, delivered what I expected. It's also the highest rating Germans will give on Amazon. And the first one in this category is How to Break Up With Your Phone, the 30-day plan to take back your life by Catherine Price. This is literally a guide to a sort of 30-day phone detox. I didn't follow the program, but I still took a lot of value from it because it helped me understand why I spend more time on my phone than I would like and how I can adjust my phone and my routine to make it easier not to spend that much time on my phone. And maybe I'll even try following the whole program one day. And of course, I'm not gonna throw a 3-star book. What were you thinking? The next 3-star book is Science Fictions: Exposing Fraud, Bias, Negligence, and Hype in Science by Stuart Ritchie. It's a book about everything that's wrong with the current state of science and possible ways to fix it. It's a bit challenging to read, not the simplest writing style, but I highly recommend it if you're either interested in going into research or regularly rely on scientific studies for your work, or even if you just like to read popular science books. It teaches you to be critical and humble when conducting or discovering new research. Next, What Color is Your Parachute? Your Guide to a Lifetime of Meaningful Work and Career Success by Richard N. Bowles. It's a really detailed career handbook that covers all the basics of building your career, with lots of exercises to help you figure out your skills and interests. It's also a classic that's been referenced by tons of newer career books, which is always satisfying when you've read the references to a book you're reading. So even though this is not the most revolutionary career book, it's a great foundation for when you read more specialized career books to help put them into context. And it's worth just getting it for the exercises to help you figure out what to do with your life. The Power of Regret: How Looking Backward Moves Us Forward by Daniel H. Pink. It's not the best work of this author. I'll review another one of his books later, but it's also not bad. The message of the book is basically that everyone has regrets and we should allow ourselves to admit that and use those regrets to make better decisions in the future. My favorite part by far is where he talks about people getting their no regrets tattoos removed. It's definitely full of very interesting thoughts and research. The only reason that I didn't give it more stars is that I remember myself getting a bit bored a few times. I wasn't totally encaptured by this book the whole time like I was, for example, by his other book. And the final 3-star book is What They Don't Teach You at Harvard Business School by Mark H. McCormack. Now, my immediate disappointment with this book is that the author didn't go to Harvard Business School himself. He didn't even go to business school at all, as far as I could find. He only went to Yale Law School, but okay. Otherwise, the book delivers what it promises. It talks about a bunch of skills and knowledge that are important to have in business and that they don't teach you at Harvard Business School. It's a good collection, but there wasn't anything really new or surprising to me. And the writing style is a bit boring. Now, the book was also first published in 1984, so I've probably read a lot of books that have built on this book, so that might be why. I wanted to read it to see what the hype was all about, and I don't regret reading it. Now it's time for the 4-star books. 4 stars is a great book. I enjoyed reading it, I took a lot of value from it, I want to read it again. And the first 4-star book has a kind of similar title to the last one, and that is What They Teach You at Harvard Business School by Philip Delves Broughton. So it's basically the opposite title of the previous book, but other than that, it's completely different. And it's also much younger, as this was first published in 2008, so 24 years after this one. It's not a book summarizing everything that you would learn at Harvard Business School. Instead, the author tells the story of what it was like for him to go to business school, what the other students and professors were like, what kind of lectures he had, and what kind of case studies he had to do. It's not meant to teach you the material, but rather convey the vibes of business school. It's well written and funny, it makes you feel like an insider, and I highly recommend it, especially if you're interested in going to business school or if you want to hate on business school. Either way, this book has got you covered. Next up, we have Shoe Dog, a memoir by the creator of Nike by Phil Knight. I don't have the physical copy of this book right now because I borrowed it to someone because it was so good. If you love stories of people starting companies, you'll love this one. It's not your typical boring memoir. It's an intriguing story with strong characters, and the author creates this subtle but constant aura of sarcasm. I read it on vacation and I could not put this book down for the 3 days it took me to read it. Why go to the beach if you can read this book? It's definitely more of an inspirational read rather than an actionable one, so if you're looking to get inspired, then this is a winner. Next up, we have 2 Weeks Notice. Find the courage to quit your job, make more money, work where you want, and change the world by Amy Porterfield. This is a book I took pages and pages of notes on because I wanted to remember it all. It's a book about how to start an online marketing business step by step, and it really tells you exactly what to do. It's a mix of actionable and inspirational, but mostly actionable because it gets so specific down to what to put on your website and which emails to send to people. I heard about this book from Amy's podcast, which is called Online Marketing Made Easy, and I can highly recommend both the podcast and the book if you want to implement online marketing in your business. Next, we have Positively Purple. Build an inclusive world where people with disabilities can flourish by Kate Nash. This book is basically meant to give advice to 3 different groups of people. First, how employers can build an environment of trust and support for people with disabilities. Second, how people with disabilities can advocate for themselves and do well in the workplace. And third, how people without disabilities can be true allies. The author Kate Nash shares her story of finding her own path and starting a nonprofit, and shares lessons to take away at each step of the way. I randomly picked this up at an airport, and I'm so glad I did because it's an important book, really well written, and it has opened my eyes to so many aspects of having disabilities in the workplace. I think everyone should read this, especially anyone who's either running a company or thinking of starting one, and really anyone who's managing any people or ever might. Yeah, everyone. Next, The Trusted Advisor by David H. Maister, Charles H. Green, and Robert M. Gelford. Why do all authors use their middle name initial? I'd love to know. Anyway, back to the book. This is really an introductory guide to consulting, and it breaks down exactly how you can build trust with your clients, how you can give them advice that they want to take and therefore achieve the best results for them, and how to deal with different types of clients. I think it's not only useful for consulting, but for any service-based profession where you first need to build trust with your clients before you can achieve anything else. 80,000 Hours. Find a fulfilling career that does good by Benjamin Todd and the 80,000 Hours team, which is a non-profit with a mission to help you figure out how to best spend the 80,000 hours you have in your career. You can actually get this book mailed to you for free if you sign up to their newsletter, which sounds sketchy, but it actually works, and the book is amazing. I like that it's focused on doing something fulfilling that makes an impact, and that they actually look at what those options could be and try to find metrics for quantifying the impact you could have. In general, they say that you can make the biggest impact with your career by working on problems that are neglected and have a large scale but are solvable and fit your personal interests and skills. And the book helps you figure that out for you personally in detail. It also talks about how to invest in yourself and build up your career capital with skills and experience that will be useful in the future, even as the world changes. All in all, this is the best book on career planning I've read so far. When? The Scientific Secrets of Perfect Timing by Daniel H. Pink. So this is the second book I've read from this author this year, and it's so good. It includes research and actionable tips about all kinds of situations where timing matters, whether that's the cycle of the day and when to sleep and drink coffee, when to start things, continue things, or end things, and group timing. I will 100% read this again and also reference specific chapters when they apply to my life. Next, we have Quit: The Power of Knowing When to Walk Away by Annie Duke. Annie Duke is a professional poker player turned researcher, and in this book she talks about how bias makes us quit all kinds of things both too early and too late, whether that's projects, businesses, stocks, jobs, queues, or climbing adventures. Although the book is not intended as a career advice book, it really helped me see my life in a new light, get unexpected insights, and take hard decisions with more confidence. It's super actionable with concrete reflection exercises you can do and guidelines you can follow when you take decisions. And the final 4-star book is The Visual MBA, a quick guide to everything you'll learn in 2 years of business school by Jason Barron. It's a guy who went to business school, took visual notes, and made them into this book. It's divided into 20 chapters, which each cover a different traditional class class of business school, and it consists mainly of drawings and then some small text to explain the drawings, like this. It's super fun and easy to read. You can just fly through it, and it's great for getting a high-level overview of all the business knowledge you learn. I do think you need to read other more in-depth business books to really learn all the material of business school, but it's great for getting an introduction and also later for connecting all the different pieces of business knowledge that you learn with each other in a really visual way. Finally, we've reached the 5-star books. 5 stars is a banger, a life-changing book. I want to read this again every single year, and I have 5 5-star books. Very fitting. So let's start with first one, The Psychology of Money: Timeless Lessons on Wealth, Greed and Happiness by Morgan Housel. I love this book. It has short, to-the-point chapters. Each teach a lesson to help us see money in a reasonable way. And reasonable is not to be confused with rational. Instead of focusing on making more money, it's focused on making sure we don't lose money on stupid things, and that we find a way to deal with money that's not just financially but also mentally good for us. For example, managing money in a way that helps us sleep at night. Highly recommend. Next, Rework: Change the Way You Work Forever by Jason Fried and David Heinemeier Hansson. This book is about succeeding in business, but it's not your typical business book at all. The authors are running an intentionally small company that's making bank with 19 employees on 5 different continents, but they don't have any meetings and no 5-year plan. The book is full of unorthodox advice like stay small, throw less at the problem, underdo your competition, and don't write it down. It's also written in an easy to read format with very short, to the point chapters. It's great when authors know how to say a lot with few words. I loved every single mini chapter of this book, and if you're interested in shaping the way businesses are, you probably will too. Next, $100 million Offers: How to Make Offers So Good People Feel Stupid Saying No by Alex Hormozi. As the title says it, this book is all about how to create an incredible offer, price it well, and promote it. It goes incredibly deep into detail, down to how to name your offer, how to price it, and what bonuses to add to your offer. I listened to the audio version of this book first and took 16 pages of handwritten notes. Then I finally decided that I also need to have the book version, which I'm so glad I got. I'm gonna reference this over and over again. It's a no bullshit kind of book, really empowering and actionable, and it makes me want to go out and start something immediately. Next, The One-Page Marketing Plan: Get New Customers, Make More Money, and Stand Out from the Crowd by Alan Dipp. Another book I took endless notes on. In the introduction, Alan Dipp says himself that this is a book about the fastest path to the money, and I truly appreciate the directness. The book is literally about creating a one-page marketing plan, which is one page in the book that you fill out to specify what kind of customers you're targeting and with what message, how you're finding potential customers and turning them into paying customers, and how you deliver your products or services to them and increase their lifetime value. And each chapter of the book is dedicated to one of the 9 fields of this one-page marketing plan to help you write the plan and stand out in each area. It definitely helps if you have a business or a business idea for which you can fill out this plan, but I still took a ton of value from this book without that. And I will definitely come back to this book if there's a business idea I want to test and refine. And the final book, and also a book that kind of represents this year to me, is The Pathless Path. The Pathless Path: Imagining a New Story for Work and Life by Paul Millard. That was somehow very fitting. Paul Millard writes about his experience going from a burned out consultant to finding his own path and the lessons he learned along the way. It's inspiring to read and help me reflect on what really matters to me. Paul pushes you to differentiate between what you think you should want because others want it and what you actually want, and then use that to carve out your own life path. And the best part is that I have a signed copy. Highlight of the year, hands down. Paul also has a great newsletter and podcast, both with the same name as the book, that I highly recommend. And I was even able to get to know him personally because I decided to join his paid online community for people trying to find their own path, which is definitely I've been trying to do this year. That community really helped me get through the period of quitting my engineering job and figuring out what to do next. So I can quite literally say that this book and all the other work from this author has truly changed my life this year, and I can't wait to see where my path leads me next year. So there you have all 23 non-fiction books I've read in 2023, ranked from worst to best. And I actually did the same thing last year, where I also read some super awesome and some super terrible non-fiction books. If you want to see that, I'm gonna link it right here.